All right, welcome back to Bayou Time, and as we always do before council meetings and committee meetings, we have Ms. Jessica Domingue come on, the chairwoman for the Terrebonne Parish Council, and we welcome her back. And she has a very special guest with her today because fresh off the election victory is Councilman Brian Pledger, and he won Council District 1. Congratulations, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Good to see you. And Jessica, as usual, welcome aboard. Good to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you again.
We got a lot happening in the parish. We had all kind of events happening this weekend. We had the Haven, which they raised a super amount of money this year. It's good that Terrebonne Parish is back, and we're all looking for things to do, and everybody's getting out the house and doing things again. So can we start off on a positive note?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So we had the Haven event. I was thinking about that. Do you remember we did the telethon here during the pandemic?
During COVID.
That was so much fun. But yeah, so we had the Haven event, which, you know, they do so many wonderful things for our community and for women and children who are in abusive situations. So it's definitely good to support them. Bayou Terrebonne Distilleries had their annual boucherie, which was wonderful. The weather, it was a little hot, but it was the weather held out, and so they had a great event. There was one other event, I can't remember what it was. Oh, the Easter egg hunt.
Yeah,
so we had the Easter egg hunt for the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government Easter egg hunt. We had some races. So it's spring in Terrebonne Parish, and there's always so much to do.
Didn't we have an election?
I think we had an election. I think we did, but yeah. So it was a really good day.
All right, before we get to the actual agenda and we talk about little council business, and I appreciate our councilwoman, our chairwoman, bringing the newly elected councilman on the set. So, Mr. Pledger, just for our audience, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and let the audience, especially District 1 seems to know, but other districts, give us a little information about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to be here, first of all, first and foremost, very excited. I was born and raised here in Terrebonne Parish, my younger days, and my mom and dad raised 4 boys, and they gave us the options out of high school. They said, you're either going to college or you're going to the military. I was number 3. I chose to go off into the U.S. Navy, served there, loved every minute of it, war veteran at this point now, and had a great career doing that. It was challenging at the time when I was young, but as I got older, I was more appreciative of those things that I was able to achieve while there. After that, I started working for a major pipeline company here in the U.S., and initially I was in New Haven, Connecticut, went over to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then went back down to Texas. And my wife, after 15 years of that, my wife says, let's go back home. So we came back here to Houma and decided to plant root. And I asked my wife, hey, where are we going to move? Where are we going to live? She says, well, you grew up right here in the Mechanicville area. Why don't you build me my dream house right here? And that's what I did.
Fantastic.
And here I am now as the councilman for District 1.
And let the audience know where you're working and what you do.
I work at Barker Honda.
Right.
I'm top sales guy over there, sell many Hondas, love working with Mr. Mike and the rest of those guys over there.
Good people.
Very, very good people, family oriented. I love the Honda brand, and I just love doing that. And it's garnered me an opportunity to meet a lot of great people during my tenure there.
So when the councilwoman here called you and said, Brian, I know you're fresh off the victory, but you're coming on the show today. No rest for the weary, right?
None, 0.
But isn't that a good thing? She's reaching out, and that's the way it ought to be, huh?
It is. I signed up for it, and this is what the expectation is, and that's what I need to do.
What do you want to see? Because I know I've asked that to Jessica many times, and she's given me great answers. But what do you want to see the parish? What direction do you want to see it going?
Well, part of the reason I chose to run, Martin, was the gap needs to be bridged. And what I mean by that is I had some instances when I was building my new home for my wife, just general things within the community that I wasn't aware of. And going back to what I want to see, the most important thing, I want to see the gap bridged with the community and government. More so, I want to be a facilitator to bridge that gap, teaching the folks in my community how to get things done on their own. You know, where it's
Transparency is a big word. We use it a lot, but sometimes we don't implement it. I know Jessica's been trying to do that quite a bit, so just being transparent with the public is a good thing, isn't it?
It is. It is. If you show them, there's a lot of folks out there that want to learn. And I think being a community like Terrebonne Parish, so close-knit the way it is, they should want to learn that, you know, how to deal with the government.
So let me ask the councilwoman with a council chair with about a minute left on this segment. You got a new face on board, and what do y'all have, an orientation? How does that work?
Well, not really an orientation. It's just kind of they throw you to the fire and say, figure it out. But you know, Brian and I have talked a lot about, you know, what he needs to do, what are the next steps, where he needs to go, who does he need to schedule meetings with, who are the important key players in our government that he needs to really kind of get to know now. You know, he's stepping into Dr. John Navy's position, and who had been there for a very long time. He was there for 12 years, and so, you know, what projects were happening, where is it that we need to go with things. But we're happy to have Brian. We're very excited to have him on board. I'm very excited to have you on board, Brian. I think you're going to be a really good fit with us.
So Jessica, looking at the agenda, I know there was a DOTD update that you wanted to bring the people up to speed on, so why don't we give you the floor for that?
Yeah, and Martin, this will be on Wednesday night's agenda. And a few weeks ago, there was a meeting with Mr. Mike Toops, Mr. Steve Ponville, and they had a very productive meeting with LADOTD, which has not happened in a very, very long time, if ever, that they were actually able to sit at the table with DOTD. And we all know the problems that we have been having with, you know, our highways are crumbling, that our grass doesn't get cut. There's a lot of issues. And so they actually have new leadership in our area. And so they were able to sit down and have that conversation. And they came up with a strategic plan to start working on some problem areas in Terrebonne Parish. And actually this weekend in District 5 on LA 24 by Hollywood Road, they actually already started some construction in the area. So that was very refreshing to see, is that we're going to have this open dialogue and open conversation. But Mr. Mike Toops is going to really fill us in on that. And so if anybody can sit and watch the meeting, it'll be at the very beginning of the meeting, so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. But that would be something really important for the public to watch, because sometimes it gets confused what's a parish road and what's a state highway. And so this will be really informative for the public.
You know, I'm sitting there at lunch a lot of times. We were having this discussion last week at HTV. So many people call us and they're complaining about roads. And they say, man, that council needs to get this going. The parish president, I'm going, y'all, that's a state highway. And it's very confusing. I know y'all hear quite a bit. And Brian, I'm sure you heard it while campaigning about roads and everything else. But and I know our state delegation is trying to get it too, but it's just breaking through. I don't know when they let roads get so bad, but some of them are terrible. But let's put the blame in the categories it belongs in to get the result. Y'all can't go out and fix Barrow Street and Main Street because it's not yours. You know, so did you hear that a lot while campaigning?
I did hear that. A lot of the folks, when I was out talking with them, they mentioned that to me. They said one of their top priorities was roads. Why are the roads so bad?
We were talking during the break, and Brian was telling us about his parents, and me and Jessica were bringing up an independent thinker kind of mentality, and you said, finish the story. Y'all were just talking about that? You said you and your mom were talking about that?
My mom and I were talking. She kind of butted in on the conversation between my son and I. My son, he traveled
She's
down.
entitled to that.
She can, clearly she can do it, and I encourage the feedback from her.
Yeah.
But he came down to sharing the experience of me winning the election here, he and his girlfriend from Florida. And my mom, she's been teaching school for 30 years or so. And I told her, I said, Mom, you're 70 years old. Why don't you take some time and just relax? You don't have to work anymore. And she says, no, Brian, everything's good, you know. I just want to do it. And I encourage that so she can keep her, whatever she wants to do going. But most importantly, she said to me, she said, now that you're the councilman, you don't have to change everything or try and change everything. I said, why not? Change is good. And she says, well, for us older folks, we don't really like the change, but if you're going to help me with the change, I'm willing to do it, So that's one of the things based on what why I wanted to do this as far as be a council person, and that's to help change and help teach people how to do it, give them an opportunity to give their voice, but also how can you fix it too as well.
Jessica, he makes a great point, which I really never thought about. People always campaign on change, but your mom told you regulate the change, don't go crazy on the change. Do you hear that quite a bit?
I hear that a lot, actually,
Yeah.
and I actually experienced that early on in this term. I mean, whenever we were talking about recreation and changing recreation, we got a lot of pushback on those things, and I thought, what? This is it's recreation. I mean, but there was a lot of people who weren't really for what we were doing at the time, and we learned a lot from that as well, that you can't go in and change everything. I mean, incrementally. And there are things in our government that are going to have to change, and there were going to be some very difficult conversations we're going to have in the next year, 2 years, regarding some change we're going to have to make. But it's going to be very important to provide education, and we're all going to have to work on that together. And I was watching the elections, actually, the election report results, and you had Archie on from Lafourche, and he did a big tax reform initiative, and it passed. But what happened is Archie actually went to every corner of Lafourche and talked to his residents, and he helped temper those fears as, oh gosh, we're going to change and everything's going to be terrible, when actually it was a really positive thing. And so that's really what we need to do as council people, and whoever the next parish president is we need to educate people on why we're doing the things that we're doing. It's really, we're there to help. We're not there to hurt in any way. And so just tempering a lot of that fear, I think, is really important.
I'll go over in this segment a little bit, Jen, but because you brought up a good point. What Archie, in my opinion, did, he controlled his message.
Correct.
He came out, because the rumor mill can make it sound like it's the most terrible thing in the world, but he came on, he controlled the message, showed people how they were going to save money, him and the superintendent. And so when people started hearing the other side go, whoa, we saving money, he got ahead of the message and he controlled it. And that's pretty much what all of you have to do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It works better that way, doesn't it?
Well, it helps when we're all on message together. Sometimes we're not always on message together. But I'm so hopeful for the future, and I love with the direction that we're going. And now that we've got Brian on board, I feel like we've got the right person to help us start, well, we've been doing it. We've been working so hard, and everything's been, you see the projects, you see the growth in the parish. Everywhere you turn around, they're building something or something's coming up. And so just continuing on that momentum, I think, is really important.
I've been hearing a lot about the power plant. I know y'all have been hearing a lot. And Brian, you will hear a lot about the power plant. But Jessica, any updates? I know a lot has to do with FEMA and everything else, but anything we could add?
Yeah, we actually did have an executive session about the power plant last Wednesday. We were actually in executive until 9:30 at night. So it was a very extensive conversation. It was all of the council, the parish president, the parish attorney, the CFO. So we had a really, really good meeting. We were able to ask all the questions that we wanted to ask. They provided us all the information that they had. And the power plant situation is so fluid because it seems to change so often based on what FEMA says. I mean, we have to go by the book for what FEMA says we can or can't do. And so really and truly, this all came together probably in the last 4 months or so. So we do have the temporary power plant built now. We have those temporary generators built. And so the parish is in a good space now to be able to provide power to our residents if we have a blackout or a brownout or whatever that is. So we're in a good spot now to move forward. Of course, we are going to request that we build a brand-new power plant. That's ultimately the goal. And when that will happen, I don't know, because they've got to go through insurance and they've got to go through FEMA, and FEMA has to say, yes, we will approve this or we won't approve this. So that's all part of the discussion, and that's why you'll hear the term, you'll hear about Royal Engineers. They're our consultants on that, and so they're working on it. A lot of the details I really can't disclose because it was an executive, and you understand that. But I feel as though I'm a lot more abreast as to the conversation and to where we are now, and have full confidence in our government and where we are with the power plant.
We had talked last week when you were on, or a week before last, I'm not sure exactly when it was, time flies. FEMA can reimburse you 70-30 sometimes, or 90-10. But on this power plant, it was very important that y'all spent some monies ahead of it, get it running, because if we'd have been functioning without it, then FEMA could have very well said, y'all doing fine without it, y'all don't need it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're doing what's best for the people in Terrebonne Parish and best for moving forward with getting a new power plant.
Let me ask Brian something. We've got about 2.5 minutes left on the show. And as a new council person, I know with that military background, you expect a lot of yourself. And I have this conversation with people a lot. But you expect a lot out of people around you too. So what are some of the things what's the learning curve you've given yourself to come in and go, all right, I give myself 30 days before I'm actually pretty good? And Jessica's laughing and shaking her hands. But let me hear it from you. How much time are you giving yourself?
Well, the duration of this run for me, or this whole process. I mean, it's one of those things, coming from a military background, you're constantly learning. So with that being said, I'll never feel comfortable with just, I think I got it, because that's when you're going to have instances where something's going to hit you on the other side, and it's something that you hadn't dealt with before. So it's one of those things, I'm not going to feel comfortable at any point. Now, being comfortable is one thing. Now, if you ask me in a couple weeks, maybe I'll be a little bit more confident. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I'm never going to be comfortable, but I'm just going to get more and more confident to where I can do even more.
Comfortable and confident. I like that.
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank y'all, and Ms. Domain, thank you too. I know you got a meeting with the parish president, so I'm sure that'll be a good meeting. And once again, Mr. Pledger, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
And I know you fought hard for that victory, and don't forget, keep listening to your mama.
Absolutely. She's right next door.
All right. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
Jessica, I'll see you again in a couple of weeks, right?
I know, it goes by so quickly.
It sure does.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. We're going to take a short break. We have a lot more on Bayou Time. It's going to be a busy week here, and you'll see that in our shows coming up. So we'll take a break right around the corner. We'll have more programming right here. And don't forget Facebook and YouTube.